Hello, this is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest agronomist with your Agronomy in Action Focus Friday here on September the 20th. So, silage harvest is wrapping up for a large part of the state, and soybean harvest has begun, boy, especially in southern and now even central Michigan. With the hot and continued dry weather, this year's crop is advancing just at a breakneck speed, and both silage and soybean yields, though, really have been reported to me at something that I would call consistently above average and really above expectations. So, to see just how far ahead we are this week in heat unit accumulations, let's, as usual, check the MSU's EnviroWeather site. And this week's data shows that in the East Lansing, Central Michigan area, we're at almost 2,450 heat units, or 41 above the 5-year average. Going over to West Michigan, Allegan County, 2,525 heat units, or 36 above the 5-year average. Jumping down to the southeast part of the state, Deerfield, Blissfield area, 2,653 heat units, or 50 above the 5-year average. Now, Sandusky up in the thumb at 2,383, but 74 heat units above the 5-year average, and leading the pack up in Ithaca at 2,605 heat units, but 84 heat units above the 5-year average. So this puts us anywhere from 2 to 5 days ahead of the 5-year average, and shoot, a good 2 weeks plus ahead of last year. And then this next week, it's going to be about another 18 heat units per day expected accumulation there. So for this week, let's talk about, again, what I've been seeing in my travels. And plus, I want to share some initial soybean yield data that's coming in and talk about harvesting some green stem soybeans. So what are we seeing out there? Had a good chance to travel through southeast Michigan, and all I can say is, wow, it's just been really droughty down there. Now, talking to folks, there's places that haven't seen rain since early August, and that crop is showing that, especially in the soybeans and even in the corn as well. Now, even further down, we get down into Dundee areas, that wasn't quite as bad, but as one of my friends said down there, we're just going to limp into the finish of harvest in that part of the state. So I feel for those guys, things we certainly can't control. But on the other hand, I'm starting to get some soybean yields coming in, and they are impressive. So I got a report of a Group 1.1 variety. It was early variety of ours up in Huron County, and that thing was hitting 80 plus bushels to the acre. Saginaw County got some reports of our 2.2 variety, and that was actually at 90 plus bushels per acre there. More in the central Michigan, Clinton County got reports there of our 2.2 also breaking 90 bushel. And there's Shiawassee County, my home county. As we move a little further east, that 2.2, they were excited to see that between 65 and 70 bushels. So again, certainly some higher than expected yields out there. I don't expect that to run across the whole state, because I think we're going to certainly see some smaller bean size and maybe some beans that didn't fill up the top of that canopy across. But there is hope, and certainly looking forward to some of those yields continuing to come in. So as you get those, make sure you reach out and share those, and I'll be happy to share them here on this podcast. Let's jump into a problem we are seeing, though, and that is when guys are trying to get these soybeans harvested this week, we're running into a unique situation. The beans, they're running about 10% moisture, but the stems are still tough. They got a little bit of yellow and green in them, and they're hard to cut through. But the guys are finding when they work through that, it's worth it. And so when we think about what can we do, we got to think back to last week's podcast, and we were talking about when we look at the difference between a 14% moisture at harvest to an 8%, harvest moisture on soybeans, we can lose up to 20% of our yield loss. And a lot of that is from shatter, as well as just not taking that water to the mill with us in those loads. But, if we think about how we can manage some of this, I think we got to think of a couple of things. One, wherever we can, let's utilize time of day. We have a heavier dew on in the morning and even throughout some of the night there, and maybe pulling up, taking advantage of some of that dew and moisture out there to help reduce some of that shatter and keep that moisture up. If we got an air reel, let's make sure we're using that just to capture as much yield as possible on some of those drier beans. Probably should be slowing our reel speed down, not trying to fling out too many of those beans ahead of the head there. And then, where we do have some of those areas of the field that might still be a little green, just blending some of those in to balance out the moisture of the full load there. So the reality is these beans, they're just going to run a little slower than, if they had a frost to kind of fully kill those stems. But, these beans, they're just never going to wait for a frost. So we probably need to get them now before they start to shatter in the field. And unfortunately, in Southeast Michigan, I did see some beans starting to shatter in the field. And so, where they haven't seen the rain since this early August time period, and even throughout fields over the next couple weeks, we keep this hot, dry weather pattern going. It's going to be probably one of those things we just need to manage through and just do the best that we can at the end of the day. So with that, I do hope that you had a great week and plans for an even better week ahead. I got to ask you to stay safe out there as we're doing harvest and do what we can to bring it home every night. So again, this is Charles Scoville, your Golden Harvest Michigan agronomist with your Agronomy in Action Focus Friday. Have a great weekend.